Okay, so last week we talked about emotions and stuff. Is there anything that happened throughout the week that you guys want to share, or we're just checking in to see?
Yeah, so I felt like last week's session was like really helpful for me. So when we talked about emotions, it really helped me with my depression. So I felt like that helped me get through the week.
That's awesome that you felt like the emotion session really helped you and like helped you learn with your depression and helped you get through the week. So now we're going to start this session with an icebreaker. It's called Worries in a Hat. So we're going to write down on an index card a worry that we might have. So this can be something like, I'm worried that people will think I'm talking too much. And you can write it on the hat, and then we're going to go into the worry, and it's anonymous, and we're going to read the worry and validate the person's worry and say, I can see why they're feeling this, and maybe a couple points about it. So we're going to pass around the worries, and then we're going to do it.
Caroline, here's a pen for you. Here's Shanique.
Thank you.
And if you have any questions, please let us know.
Yeah. Hey Shanique, I see like you're not wanting to write down your worries. Everything okay?
No.
What's going on? Do you want to talk about it a little bit more?
Well, I don't feel like writing anything down.
Or do you feel like it's maybe overwhelming, or what's distressing about writing something down for you?
I just feel like if I write something down, people will laugh at me. So I just don't want to even write anything down.
I can see like how writing something down can be really overwhelming and you're afraid of what people will think, but maybe we could write something down about something that's smaller, like being late. I'm worried about being late, and that's a common fear that everyone has, so people might validate it, and I think that it's a really good activity to learn other people's fears and have your fears validated. Do you want to try that?
Sure, I guess I could give it a try.
Okay, perfect. If you have any questions, you can come and ask me.
Okay, thank you.
So when you guys are done, I have the hat here for you to put it in. Thank you so much, Caroline.
Okay, so now we're gonna pass around the worries and we're gonna read them out loud, and maybe we're gonna say a validating statement or something that you think that this person might be feeling why they wrote this.
Does anyone feel comfortable starting?
I'll go first.
Oh, thank you, Caroline. Oh.
Okay, so the worry is, I worry that I will come to the session late today. I understand why this will be a worry. Maybe there's traffic, maybe they were late from the football session. So it's understandable why somebody would have this concern of being late.
Yeah, and it sounds like you gave some really great examples of why someone, especially at your age, would be late, football practice, traffic, things like that. How would you feel if you were running late for a session?
I would be very nervous, I'll be anxious, I'll be palpitating, I'll be like, oh my god, oh my god. I'll be very disappointed because I don't want to be late, and I don't want to waste other people's time who are probably there on time as well. So
Yeah.
I would be pretty anxious about it.
Yeah, so it sounds like that this is something that a lot of people in the room are feeling. That's great. Thank you so much, Caroline. So we'll move this one to the side.
So it says I worry about people looking at me different. So I guess what this person's trying to say is that they're afraid to be themselves because they might be judged by the other people in the group. So I understand how nerve-wracking this can be, right? So
What are some feelings do you think that person would have to, what people will think of them when they're talking about that?
how the person would feel that wrote this.
Yeah.
I would say worried about being judged by others. It could make them feel sad if someone criticized them.
Yeah, it can maybe be overwhelming too about writing down and hearing what other people are thinking as well.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect, thank you, Shani.
Okay, thank you so much, both of you, for participating in the icebreaker. So this was actually the last session that we're going to be doing those icebreakers because it was important those first 3 weeks to get you guys to get to know each other a little better. So this session we're going to be talking about risk a little bit. So our first session, we really talked about your stories and why you're here today. And then the second session, we talked about some emotions around those feelings. So today what we're doing is kind of pulling those two things together, how your emotions and how the attempt has affected your level of risk in the future, okay? So first, before we get started, I just want to acknowledge that there is trauma in this room, that we have been through things in our lives that can cause us to feel anxious, depressed, worried, and all of the other emotions that we talked about last time. We will, in the discussion of risk, be mentioning words like suicide and attempt and things like that. As we mentioned at the beginning of all the sessions that I'm going to reiterate here right now, if you are feeling triggered, you know what works best for you. But I'll just reiterate, please feel free to leave the room. Please feel free to talk to Emily or I at the break or at the end of the session if you were feeling uncomfortable. And there's no need to participate if you are feeling upset. Just to take a deep breath and just center yourselves. All right? So, there are three kind of big areas around risk that we're going to talk about today. So the first one is what we've been talking about a lot, which is our feelings. So with, with risk for a suicide attempt, the two big feelings that are happening are feelings of hopelessness and feelings of depression. And we mentioned that last session too. Other things that come out of those emotions are thoughts. So some thoughts of feeling worthless, like I'm worthless, or I can't do this anymore, things like that. And finally, the piece around risk is the action. So moving from those feelings and thoughts into actual steps and behaviors. So creating a plan, finding the means, writing a suicide note, putting it in your calendar, things like that as well. So I know that this is a very difficult subject, and I do want to acknowledge that, but we are here to talk about our stories so that we can support each other and we can develop coping strategies so that these things don't happen again. So is anyone willing to share thoughts about what happened before, during, or after their suicide attempt?
So I felt like like during my suicide attempt, like my mom was very much involved. Like she kept nagging me and it was like super annoying. I didn't even want her to like bother me or anything like that.
It's a really good comment. How did you survive your suicide?
Well, with the help of my mother.
With the help of your mother? She helped you?
Yeah. Yeah, because she was nagging me, I didn't have like the time to do it, right?
Yeah.
So that's what it was.
And you felt like your mom was like there, like she was nagging you, but she was still there, like checking in on you as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So it sounds like your mom was really supportive in being around you. Do you find that that's helpful since your suicide attempt, that she's been a really positive force?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't find it that helpful because I feel like he's constantly around me and like nagging me, right? It's pretty annoying to me.
So since then, you feel like it hasn't been as helpful?
No.
Okay.
Well, for me, it actually has worked. My mom has been very supportive, so I don't understand what you're saying that your mom nagging you is a bad thing. My mom has always been there. Every time I want to see my plan through, she's knocking on the door. And now that I think about it, like I'm here. If it wasn't for her intervening, I wouldn't be here. So that has really helped me. Even now, I'm in the process of not thinking about it anymore. Because I know there's somebody who believes in me. If she didn't believe in me, then she wouldn't be all up in my space.
Okay. Yeah, so it sounds like throughout your mom has been very supportive to you. So I just have a question. So you mentioned that you didn't understand what Shanique was saying about her mom nagging her being kind of a hindrance rather than a help to her, whereas you see your mother's role as a really a helping role. I'm curious about how you feel about different coping strategies. So do you understand that maybe for Shanique, her mom may not be as much of a help to her.
And that's your mother.
Mm-hmm.
Your mom should she cares about you. If she didn't care about her, she wouldn't be nagging, as she's saying.
Yeah.
So that's my coping strategy.
I can absolutely see why you would say that, and I understand your frustration around something that was such a big coping strategy for you being shared in more of a negative light. However, we are here mainly to develop our own coping strategies and support systems. So it sounds like your mom is maybe not, if she's not the number one of the top supports for you. That's great. But for Shanique, maybe that may not be the case. She may have other people in her life that support her in a way that she needs personally. Because how we go into these suicide attempts and trying to get through them and live our lives is a very individual, unique thing, as you well know. So it's important that we understand and respect each other's coping strategies. So when Shanique's saying that her mom isn't so much of a support to her, that doesn't necessarily mean that your mom wasn't for you. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Great. If you have any concerns afterwards or during the break, feel free to talk to us. Okay, great. So with that being said, these are really big things we're discussing today. We just have a few more questions before we move on to our activity.
So Shanique, do you want to talk about someone in your support system that really helped you?
Yeah, so for me, I find that my best friend is very supportive of me, more so than my mom.
What's some things that your best friend does to support you?
So she'll always call me and check up on me, she'll invite me to go out with them sometimes in the week, and that's something that I look forward to.
Yeah, so you have your friend and she kind of gives you things to look forward to or to keep you positive throughout the week.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to share anything that Shanique, you kind of already said, but anything that didn't help? Do you want Caroline maybe discuss anything that didn't help?
For me, the one thing that can help is having things around that were easily accessible. As much as my mom was my support system, her medication was all over the place. I could easily access it. I could see exercising ropes everywhere. So having things that trigger me wasn't really helping.
So you have a lot of things that were easily accessible, which can be really overwhelming and difficult. So what are some strategies that you've used now to kind of work with that?
So now I've had to, as we learned in the previous sessions about your emotions, so every time I would see something that would trigger me, I would breathe in and breathe out. I would do breathing exercises. And I would also train my mind to, when I see something that's triggering, I look at it as something positive. So I would turn that trigger into a positive thing. And that has worked so far.
It's awesome that you've been using that and switching it from a negative outlook, which you once had, to now something positive and reassuring yourself with breathing exercise, which is really good.
That's a difficult thing. Yeah, so I was going to talk about one thing because we brought up a lot of what we call buffers, which is kind of the other end of the spectrum in risk. So it kind of takes away that risk. So you guys have mentioned your best friend, your mom, breathing exercises, distractions, all of these things are buffers that lower your risk for another suicide attempt. So when you're starting to feel those depressive feelings, you're starting to feel that hopelessness, you guys already have all these things in place that can be buffers towards the actions that you may have taken a few months ago, which is really amazing. Okay, great. So now that we've taken a break, cleared our heads a little bit, we're going to be doing an activity today. It's called the Feelings Concentration Game. So it's kind of fun. So what you do is you do it in partners, and you get what Emily has in her hand, which are emotion cards. So there are pairs of matching emotions. So they could be two angry cards, right? Two sad cards. And what we're going to do is we're going to flip them upside down so that you can't see what they are. And once you guys create a match, you have to talk about a memory that you have of feeling that emotion. So maybe there was some sadness when you woke up in the hospital after your attempt, is an example of that. We try to have examples that are around the suicide attempt or attempts. If you are feeling uncomfortable, you can absolutely say a memory that is not related to that, just a time you were generally angry, like you were stuck in traffic or something like that. Do you guys have any questions before we move? No? Okay, great. So we're just gonna, here, I'll help you out. So we're just gonna lay these out. And I will be your designated flipper. So if you guys can actually turn around so that you don't see where I'm putting them. All right, so all right, Shanique, Caroline, you guys can turn around. So who wants to pick a card first?
I'll go first.
Okay. Oh. Sorry about that. So one's flipped up. Sorry about that. Okay, Shanique, go ahead. Okay, so one tired and one frustrated. Okay. So we don't have a match yet. So Shanique, go ahead. Two frustrated. So we got a match. So Shanique, can you think of a time, if you feel comfortable, around your suicide attempt where you felt frustrated?
Yeah, so I remember last week, I was trying to attempt suicide, and then my mom came to the room. So that was pretty frustrating because I felt like she disrupted what I was doing. So that made me feel frustrated.
Thanks for sharing that, Shanique. It can be really difficult to talk about something that would be frustrating, especially something so recent. I can see, especially after the last conversation, you saying that you feel like your mom kind of nags you, so that could be very frustrating that your mom's interrupting you or coming in and checking on you. So I do understand where you're coming from. Caroline, do you want to share a time where you felt frustrated?
Oh, sure. It was about 2 weeks ago. I'm in the bathroom and I'm trying to take my mother's pills, and they all fell in the sink. Like they went down the drain. I was going off the walls. And I couldn't even pick them up.
That can feel like really frustrating because you just watched something that you wanted to do go all the way down the drain. So what was something that you did to help yourself when you were frustrated in that time?
I just walked out and I went to sleep.
You went to sleep. And did you still feel as frustrated when you woke up, or did you feel?
I felt a little bit better, just knowing that pretty soon her prescription will be refilled, so I'll have another chance. So that kind of made me feel a little bit better.
Well, I do just want to acknowledge that, and I'm really impressed and proud of you, that instead of trying to find another means to die by suicide, which you mentioned in an earlier conversation, that you have a lot of access to belts, to exercise equipment, to things like that, that instead of finding something else, you did go take a nap instead. So I think that was really great of you.
Thank you guys for sharing that. Do you guys want to do another one?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we've been overwhelmed now. We have a match.
Perfect. Do you want to share a time when you felt overwhelmed relating to your suicide?
Yeah, so the first time when I went to the hospital for my suicide attempt, I felt overwhelmed with like my family members coming to the hospital and like blaming me. So instead of asking like how I was doing, they just kept blaming me and said, "Oh, Shanique, why did you do that? You're so dumb." And it just made me feel really low about myself. So that was overwhelming to have like all those people coming at me at once.
Yeah, I understand having a support system coming and you're already in an unknown location, like the hospital is a different place. So it can be really overwhelming to have people blaming you and really you want them to be a part of your support system and help you through this difficult time. Thank you for sharing that. I know it can be difficult. Caroline, do you want to share anything?
For me, it was the third time I had attempted suicide. And just my mom's love, you know, like the first time she was there, the second time she was there, the third time she's still there. And not at any point did she say anything negative, did she make me feel bad about it. So I think for me the third thing is just hit home like, oh my god, this woman, she's not giving up. So just her love overwhelmed me and it made me kind of like hold off to attend this system.
That's amazing that you have such a good support system from your mom, and earlier on with him you talked about how your mother has been so supportive, and it's just amazing that she's so supportive still and has been with you through thick and thin. It's a really great support to have in your life. Thanks for sharing.
I also think it's really cool that the word overwhelmed can just automatically, you assume it's a negative thing. Like you feel like too anxious or too something. You changed it to a positive emotion, that you're overwhelmed by your mom's love in a positive way. And I think that's a really cool reinterpretation of that word.
So do you guys want to try to match some more?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, Caroline.
Confused.
Sad.
Okay. I'm going to match yet.
Caroline, go ahead.
Guilty.
Confused.
Perfect. We go to match. Does anyone want to start in sharing a story, or? I know that it can kind of be difficult to talk about confusion. You guys are kind of silent, but something that I would maybe say for confused is like I get really confused like when people I'm texting them and they're not responding. I'm like, oh, did I do something wrong? And why aren't they responding to me? It can be kind of overwhelming and upsetting to me. Does anyone want to talk about a time? It can be related, or it doesn't have to be if you can't think of one.
I would say, even though like some of my family members say like I've done like horrible things, sometimes it confuses me like how my best friend is still so supportive of me. So it's almost like I expect her to be judgmental as well, but she's not. So sometimes it confuses me, although I really appreciate her support. But that's just a situation that gets me confused sometimes because she's so loving and supportive of me, even though I'm doing quote unquote bad things.
Yeah, it can be kind of difficult when you have people in your support system who don't understand or stuff like that, and then you have someone who's so there for you and so loving for you, and you just like are like, why? Like people are saying this is bad, and why are you still here? But it's amazing that you have someone that you can talk to and someone who's there for you to talk and listen to your stories. Thanks for sharing, Shanique.
One time I told my boyfriend I want to kill myself, and he told me, what are you waiting for? Yeah, you love me, so I'm so confused about that.
Wow, Caroline, that must have been really difficult to hear, coming from someone who said that he loved you. So when he did say that to you, how were you were feeling confused? What else were you feeling?
I just really cried. Before the comments. And then I went home by myself.
Thank you so much for sharing that really personal memory. How long ago was that?
About 2 weeks ago.
Well, we're really happy that you're here. And we're happy that you're sitting here with us today too.
Do you guys want to try to do some more?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, you can go first, Shanique. Embarrassed.
We have a match.
Okay. Does anyone want to start with the time when they felt embarrassed? Or?
I would say I felt embarrassed like the first session when we talked about like our story and what brought us here. I felt embarrassed because I thought I'd be judged in the space. So that was what I was feeling, and also a little bit nervous to share personal parts of my life.
Yeah, it can be really difficult to share that, and like not knowing for your first time being in a space and not knowing how people will take what you're saying. We are trying to make this a really safe space, but like it's really difficult for your first time when you're just meeting people to come out. And it was really great that you did come out and talk, tell your story for everyone. And I think that like the whole group listened and like benefited from hearing it and hearing how your coping strategies within that. So thanks for sharing that.
The first time my mom took me to the clinic and the nurse asked me about my situation, I don't know why I felt this sense of being embarrassed, even though I had already told my mom about it. But for some reason, when the nurse asked me, I was like, whoa. Like, I didn't want to be alive anymore just for her asking me.
Wow, yeah. Similar to what Shanique said, going to a space where you have to say some of the most intimate things to strangers can be very difficult. You've mentioned several times how important your mom is to you and how much you confide in her. That may have been a little easier to disclose how you were feeling to her versus a stranger, and especially a medical professional as well. I can see how that would be really difficult. Thank you so much for sharing.
So we want to thank you guys for doing this activity. It can be really difficult to bring up some of these thoughts or previous histories. So we are going to, this is one of our harder sessions, so we will be staying later tonight where you guys can check in with us. And if you would request a check-in call, we can give you a check-in call throughout the week because we know how difficult this session can be for some people. So just let us know if you needed that.
Okay, thank you guys so much for doing the activity. Just before we leave today is the end of the third session. We've had 3 weeks together. Thank you so much for coming each week and providing help and space for people as well. So before we leave, I'm just curious how these past 3 sessions have felt and how things have helped or not helped you in what we've done.
I think like for me so far the most helpful session has been the emotional regulation. Just being aware of what you're feeling, what's going on, and how to regulate yourself without necessarily causing harm to yourself. And then you don't really have to go announcing it to everybody that you're angry or you're sad. Like, I can just sit, breathe, relax, and I'm good to go.
Yeah, it sounds like these have really helped you kind of understand your emotions and stuff and how to work with your emotions, and that's awesome. And I think throughout in the next sessions too, we'll be still doing our mindfulness exercises that will teach you different breathing techniques and things to help you stay grounded within these sessions or when you're at home and something triggering happens. Thanks for sharing that, Caroline.
So for me, I found all the sessions pretty helpful. For me, I just really appreciate the safe space. So for me to tell my story and be real, so I don't have to cover it up. I can just be my authentic self. So I really appreciate that, and also you two facilitators were very welcoming, and also the other groupmates.
Thanks for sharing, Shanique. It's really nice to have a space where you can come and you feel supported and you don't feel like you're a burden or people are judging you when you're talking. And I think that it's really awesome that how you guys have created this awesome safe space to be able to talk and to feel comfortable sharing these really private and really like hard subject matters. So thank you guys for all doing that and thanks for sharing.
Yeah, and it's not, thank you so much for naming us as well, but it's not just about us creating a safe space. You guys have actively done that as well, because it takes all of us to create that space, so that's amazing. Just before we go, and we've done this the past 2 sessions as well, because we're talking about such difficult things that we've mentioned several times already, we'd like to check in about what you guys are doing the rest of the day, what your plans are for the evening, just to make sure you guys are safe leaving. So Shane, do you want to let us know what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. So I'm meeting up with my best friend that I mentioned throughout the sessions, and I'll be watching a movie at home.
Do you know what movie you're gonna watch?
No, not yet. It's a surprise.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, so tonight in my house is game night and pizza night. So we play different games as a family and have pizza.
That's very exciting. Hey Caroline, I seem like you stayed back. Is everything okay?
Everything is not okay. I'm kind of concerned about my mom's prescription. I don't know why she's even taking the prescription, and as I mentioned before, that's a trigger for me, and I'm able to access it easily, and I'm just concerned about it.
Yeah, I can see that can be really overwhelming. I do remember you saying your mom was getting a new prescription and you were kind of nervous about that. Is there, like, what are your feelings surrounding your mom getting the new prescription?
I feel like even though I'm kind of there, I'm not fully there. So seeing them there, it just puts me back to wanting to attempt suicide again. And I know if everything else fails, there's something readily available to me.
Yeah, that can be really overwhelming to see it, and it's right there, and it's going to put you back to square one, you feel. What are some strategies that you can do to help you when you see your mom have this prescription come in?
I feel like I want to talk to her about it. Maybe she can, I don't know, hide them or something, but I don't know how to approach her about it. I don't want her to feel like she's responsible for me attempting suicide. But at the same time, I feel like we need to have a conversation about it.
Yeah, that can be difficult too because your mom needs a prescription, but it's also affecting you, so you want to approach her. Do you feel confident approaching her alone, or maybe we could even have a time where she can come in and we can have the conversation and I can be there with you to help you?
Maybe she can come in, but then also with that, she might feel like we're invading her privacy, like me talking to you about it, she might feel like I don't offended, I don't know. So that's also my concern.
Yeah, that can be kind of difficult too. She might feel like, oh, why are you telling people this? This is like personal, but I think that she'll be really impressed too that you came and you said, well, like this is triggering to me, can we work together and find the tools where you can still have your prescription and I can feel safe. And I think that that would be really helpful for you and your mom.
Maybe I can ask her to come in next week.
Yeah, and since we talked about this, Caroline, I'm going to give you a resource sheet of people that you can contact. We can arrange a time for me to come, well, for you to come so I can talk to you and your mom and we can talk about the pills. But I just want to give this to you in case you get triggered or overwhelmed about the pills and I still have to talk to you. Is it okay if I call you tomorrow? I know that we are midweek check-in. I just want to check in on with you tomorrow and make sure that everything's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
And what time works for you?
4 p.m.
Okay, perfect. I'll call you tomorrow at 4, and if anything's overwhelming, you can contact one of those resources or use your safety plan that we've made or talk to your mom because you said that she's been such a great support. So tell her that you're feeling triggered. Thank you.